Hello racers! Today we will be talking about Take the Initiative Top Cut and player who qualified and what their deck list looked like. So let's get fast into the action and talk about the player who got first place in Swiss. So it's Cody13 and he brought Sabine ECL. So this is the most popular deck that people chose, and his list is actually pretty different than most, and I think it is a little bit worse, and we will explain to you why slightly, mostly because of his early game. For me it's very weird that he only chose to run 9 2-drops, so it makes your turn 1 really inconsistent. So he has 10 1 or below drop events, R2D2 and 9 2-drops. So his turn 1 may be really awkward. And if Sabine doesn't get really good start, it's really hard to get the game back. So for me, this is really weird that he chose to play with a list that, like, in 20% of the games can just lose on turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of running only 9 really good turn 1 plays. Like, there is R2 for sure, and he can use Daring Great with R2 on the very first round, but you have to draw both of them in order to be efficient. So yeah, it's really risky. So I would rather play another X-Wing or Ketsu, stuff like that. But I don't know, maybe he just chose Daring Great because he was expecting Hounds, and also he was playing against you, and maybe he thought that you were gonna bring Khan and just wanted to counter you, I don't know.
Yeah, but he also runs 2 Darksabers, and if you watch our channel, you know that what's my stance on this card is, and also the third one in the sideboard. And Medal Ceremonies that most people cut from the list because it's really inconsistent with the new version when you run Paw and Wrecker.
Are they really cutting Metal Ceremony?
Yeah,
Because
a lot of people, at least the list I saw, cut Metal Ceremony. I still think it's an amazingly strong card, but if you put so many new cards in the list, you need to cut something, and this is what people decided to do. But yeah, we will see. He is my opponent, so I hope to show why I think his list will struggle a lot. So let's talk about the list I brought.
yeah,
So
this is the Baton's Khan. It's very similar to what he showed on the channel a week ago or something like that. There is the shuttle, so an option to do some trades, 1 copy of Time Intervention. Yeah, I mean, I am not the biggest fan of this card, but we decided to run a one-off, so just have an additional option to have an ambush in late game for stuff like Pod, like Pod Dameron, IG, stuff like that. So that's a pretty decent option. And besides that, it's pretty standard list, I would say.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't spend much on this list. I think I will only add that that list changed a little bit from the video. Sideboard mostly changed like 100% almost. And
yeah, like there's Canning Officer for Han.
Yeah, and
stuff.
We also decided to play 2 attack pods in the main because the card surprisingly performed much better than we expected. As 6 damage on turn 4 is really big. So we added 2. It also fixed a little bit of the curve issue, so we no longer run out of cards so quickly. And I also added a frontline shuttle. The card is awful in most matchups, but in the matchup that really that the card is good, it can change the game. So I'm trying one out, but I think after the tournament I will remove it from the deck. But yeah, we will see how it will perform during the Take the Initiative. Okay, and now let's talk about the next player. So one of the most spicy lists, so Jax with his blue Han. And this deck is, for me, is just Rey, but better on every single aspect of the game. So you have security complex instead of Tarkin Town, and you have Han's ability instead of Rey ability, plus your hero deploys on the turn faster, which is really important. And you can play cards like Rey, that is basically useless in any other deck, but her ability to heal in Han is actually quite decent.
Yeah, because you don't show units with Han's ability.
Yeah. The weird card that he decided to add, for me at least, is 2 techs in the main. Tech is really like anti-control card, and he's really awful if you play him versus like mid-range or aggro. So I'm not really sure why he didn't just put him in sideboard. And the rest of the list is pretty common.
I would say the fact that he's also running only 9 turn 1 plays is quite unusual thing to do. Like, actually 8, because there are 2 copies of tech, because... no, actually, never mind. He has 11, but yeah, technically it's not the greatest turn 1 play. Like, he has Cassian, Renegade, and Yoda, but...
Yeah, but I also don't like the fact that he plays like this, because he almost can't play Renegade with anything else. Yeah, he can play Renegade with cover strength, but he actually loses 1 attack if you play like this. Yoda is a decent turn 1 play, Cassian is a really good turn 1 play, but Concord and Tech are terrible turn 1 plays, so he can also struggle at the beginning of the game. But in Sabine, this really can destroy her game. I think in Han, because of the security complex and the fact that he has a lot of healing and he can go long, I think it's a less of an issue. But still, I would personally at least add 3 more turn 1 plays that are decent.
Yeah, something like A-Wing. I feel like A-Wing would be a pretty decent option. Yeah, and also, I don't even know whether Yoda is that good of a turn 1 play, as you said, because when you play him on turn 1, he's a 2/2, and the opponent can just ECL him with Marine or whatever and kill him and stay alive. So I know you have a shield, but sometimes it's not. I mean, it's not ideal to use your epic action on the turn 1 play. So
yeah. But he also, if your opponent don't kill Yoda on turn 1, he has force throw and mystic and cover strength to fix him or make him bigger. Yeah, this deck can be really explosive, but I think with a good ECL and like removing his minions early, you can quite hard dominate the matchup, especially that he plays so many late game cards. So he plays 5, 10, 15, 5 or more mana cards, and it can really matter a lot, especially that he also runs 11, 13 events early. So he will really often encounter like positions when he has nothing to play. Okay, and now let's talk about Zazyl playlist, and he's actually a friend of mine that plays my yellow Tarkin, and he really take a love for the deck, played a bunch of him, and I think upgraded it in the places that matter.
So he's running Maul as one of. There is one flank in the main in order to counter stuff like Traitorous.
Yeah, and the rest...
he doesn't run the Incinerary Trooper. I don't know if you were running on in the version that you showed on the channel, but
yeah, I've run it. I did. My current version looks almost exactly like this because Zazyl playtested the deck to the extreme, and I think this is the list that is the best at the moment that I can think of. So if anyone wants to try the deck, this is the deck list you should copy. This deck is incredibly strong. It's already shown that it can win tournaments, and it can be really scary to play against.
Yeah, I feel like the one odd thing about this deck is running Purge Troopers, Phase 3 Troopers in sideboard. I don't like this guy if you don't have Vader. Like, playing them as a free resource, free is kind of underwhelming. Like, I am not the biggest fan of this one, and I think even if you play against Sabine, I think you have a decent matchup. Like, I would rather just have some cards in sideboard to counter more control decks, so like Palpatine, Kira.
Yeah, but he is pretty decent versus Sabine, because he can slow Sabine to the really point that she will not be able to deal with him. And the fact that you can upgrade him with Tarkin makes him a little bit better than in other decks.
Yeah, I guess.
But it was mostly a card because when I talked with Zazyl, he said he struggled a little bit versus Sabine, and he wanted to add a card that can help with that matchup. And there isn't really many better anti-aggro cards in green-yellow that he is not already running. So that's why he chose the Troopers. Yeah, they are definitely better if you run Vader, but this deck doesn't really want Vader.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that he should ride Vader, but they're just way better with Vader.
Yeah, but the deck is really strong. If anyone wants on how to play it, we have a deck tech on it, and also my games from the last season of Take the Initiative. Okay, so let's go to You Can Call Me Al. So a winner of last league.
Yeah, I believe he's the winner.
And he brought the same deck again. And for me, this is the best build Sabine in the tournament. At least if you are talking about the main deck.
Yeah, I mean, he's running one Darksaber, which I am pretty alright with. Like, I feel like Darksaber as a one of Sabine is pretty alright. He's running 12 turn 1 plays. He has a Heroic Resolve, which is also a pretty decent card. He's not running Medal Ceremony, but as you said before, apparently Sabine's decided to cut this card.
Yeah.
So yeah.
He running Heroic Resolve, which I like, because I think the card adds something that the deck was lacking, so ability to give Overwhelm. And also I really like his turn 1 spread. So he's playing 12 turn 1 and R2D2. The only thing I don't like in the deck is a sideboard, because I think he runs like 5 sideboard cards that are basically useless. So Maz is, I don't really know on what matchup you want to play her. 2 Darksabers that probably go well versus a mirror. And 3... Oh, okay, maybe the anti-Sentinel cards are good versus the Ray matchup. So, and Ewing Reinforcement that is really strong, but it's really late. Yeah, I don't think we should spend much more time on this deck. There's a lot of more Sabines, but for me, this is the best one of those that we will show. And he definitely also is the player that will probably cause the most problems for his opponents, because he mastered this deck to extreme.
Yeah, he is known for playing the Green Sabine, I would say.
Yeah. And now we have another Polish player with his Krenik Green. And I think Sip can tell a lot more about this deck than me, because he actually played him a lot.
I mean, did I play him a lot? I mean, I would say that... Okay, I mean, I would say that I'm not the biggest fan of running Krenik in the current meta, because you have Kira, and I feel like Kira is just a better version of Krenik, because of the Enforcer and the fact how you can abuse him in early game. He's running 3 copies of Timely Intervention, which is pretty unusual, I would say. Like I like the idea of playing it in aggro, but I don't think it's that great in you if you play more control deck. Because yeah, like ambushing stuff like Snoke is not the thing that you want to do. Vader is also not a good ambush target. Devastator probably also. There is Husk, Battalion, and Cargo, which are pretty good, but I don't know if it's really
Yeah.
worth running as much as 3 copies. He also has a pretty weak turn 1 play.
Oh,
So
it's
he has
terrible.
only yeah, like he has the mercenary gunship in order to step space and buy prop turret, but Pershing is not particularly great at stopping aggro, so I feel like he might run into some problems when he plays against Sabine or maybe Han Green, because how aggressive those decks can tend to be in the early game. Besides that, he has this pretty standard green blue villainy package, so ramp, ECL with Steadfast Battalion because Battalion works better with Krenik. Husk is more for Kira, but actually he is also playing 3 Husk and 2 Battalions. Maybe that's something meta specific that I don't know about Krenik at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I also
I
have
don't
a
know if
really
there's
big
anything.
problem with the list. It's mostly I really don't understand the running only 5 decent turn 1 plays. Of course, Pershing is also a turn 1 play, but with aggro you can basically just ignore him. And yeah, and if you don't, in the current meta, if you don't play anything on turn 1, it's really hard to come back because of how fast Sabine and Han can be. So
I mean, if you play against aggro, if you're playing against something that is more control, I would say that it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, if you
yeah,
play against Sabine or Han, it's definitely a
yeah.
pretty big
But I think
problem.
in the current meta, this deck is a really bold choice, and I think he will struggle a lot in the matchups that he will encounter. He can of course win them because if you go to 5 or 6 mana, you have enough healing and barrage and sentinels to lock the game. But he may not live long enough to go to this mana. So
Yeah,
uh,
I'm really curious how he does against aggro
yeah,
with his list.
he also has not a single card versus aggro in sideboard. So
Yeah, his sideboard is very March oriented against
yeah,
playing against control.
so let's hope his meta versus aggro is decent in the main board. So, and I don't think it is.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah,
Now we have Yellow Han, so a pretty spicy deck recently. And he's running mostly just the good yellow package. He's running Gamorrean Guards. I'm not the biggest fan of these guys,
yeah,
just because they are not the greatest. They don't have the greatest stat line, and I feel like you already their Sentinel is the best when you play against aggro. And I feel like the Yellow Hand has already pretty decent matchup against aggro that you don't really need them that much.
yeah.
So I don't know if there are just better 4 drops. Is there something that you can also run on the 4 resources in yellow?
Um,
Do you recall
he's already running Kira.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
already running Kira and he has scanning, and also he can just smuggle something with tag, which is also an option. So I am not the biggest fan of Gameran Guards. He has 2 copies of Fennec in his deck, which is pretty interesting choice. I feel like the Han unit with Ambush is a better unit, but Fennec is also a pretty decent option as another 7 resource card that you can play when you deploy Han on 5 resources. Like when you're at 5 resources, you use Han's ability in order to get the 6th one, and then when you deploy, you get on attack 7th one. So Fennec is alright. I feel like because Han is better, I would run 3 copies of Han and then maybe 1 of Fennec, or maybe 2 Fennecs, depending on how much those 7 drops are necessary.
yeah, I would personally run definitely 3 hands and maybe even 2 Fennecs because this deck really will lack the late game power. Of course, this is the tech DJ combo deck that is more aggressive, but also runs a really like guards and Fennecs and has a really weird sideboard for me. So I'm not really sure. I think he wanted to include every aspect from the different versions of Cunningham, and it end up with a deck that doesn't really have identity anymore. So from the we will be seeing another yellow hand list that I think is a little bit more refined than this one. Yeah, so we can. I also want to add that he is running officers and fell to dragon off color in sideboard, which is really something that I didn't see before. And officers are of course versus other hands, but fell the dragon for 6 mana. I'm not really sure on what you want to use this.
I mean, it's gonna be against aggro, maybe kill Paul. Like you can kill Paul and just stuff big shapes. So Avengers, maybe Snoke.
Yeah.
So I guess it's gonna be against that.
I will be really interested in how the deck fares out versus the other Han that for me is built better and is more focused on the aggressive side of Han. So he's running sneak attacks, jetpack, new adventure, and Chewbacca.
From interesting cards that there are in this list, like there is the Rebel package, so winning leader and fleet lieutenant, and in Hans this card wasn't really that popular, in the later stages of the Spark of Rebellion. Like at first people were trying it, but they were running many times into issue that there are quite a few cards that are not Rebel in this deck. So the leader is not a Rebel, Falcon is not a Rebel, the Han 6/6 unit is not a Rebel, so also people started to cut him, but now maybe there is something that makes him makes those cards better. Like there is R2 and C3PO, which are really good targets for being leader, but at the same time we have DJ and Tech, and I feel like neither of those are Rebels. Yeah. DJ is not a Rebel for sure, but I'm not sure about Tech.
Tech is also, it's Fringe and Clone. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think this list is mostly focused on being really aggressive.
Yeah. Does he run hands? Because I can't see them at the moment.
I'm really sorry. I will try to show it better. Yeah.
Okay. He's running 2 copies of hand and 2 Falcons.
2 copies of hand. Yeah. Sorry, I've cut the part of it because he runs much more cards than any other deck. And there is a lot of
some one-offs in. That's it.
Yeah. And I think the one-offs in Cunning Hand can be really interesting because of the ability that Tech provides, that those can be played from sideboard. The other really spicy thing is that he is running Final Showdown in the sideboard. That can be really cut people off if he plays it. Or maybe he just put it in the sideboard just so people are scared of it. The only really weird thing for me in this deck is that he is not running Spark of Rebellion in main. I think the card is extremely powerful in Han, and he chose to run the new adventure and sneak attack instead, which are a little bit more explosive, but can be really useless if you don't have the ability to play them.
Yeah, I mean, he's not running Spark of Rebellion because he just wants to commit really himself to playing this aggro-oriented hand. Like Ryan is also known for playing a lot of Yellow Sabine, so that's, I guess, his playstyle.
Yeah, that's
in general.
True. Okay, so let's go to the only player that runs Palpatine in the tournament, so Kotul, and he's
Kotul, another Polish player.
Yeah, and he's a green Palpatine. He because it's cut off, he runs 1 Devastator, and the deck is, I think, green Palpatine is a really powerful list.
Yeah, it's funny because the name of his list is I don't understand the Shadows of the Galaxy meta, but I feel like Palpatine, the mono Palpatine is pretty decent because of Enterprise Luckies and the things that you can do with them.
Yeah, but he only runs 2 of them. That was really weird for me. I think the card is incredibly strong, mostly because you can follow up Overwhelming Barrage turn later. The card I really like in this deck is Bounty Hunter's Query. This card performed much better than I anticipated in a lot of lists. And especially in Palpatine that runs Emperor's Royal Guards and Super Laser Technicians and Cobs, he can really swing a lot of games with just a 1-mana bounty that will put something really strong.
Yeah,
And
like he has a lot of good free drops, which
Yeah.
was synergize well with Bounty Hunter's Quarry.
Yeah, and this deck basically tries to survive early game, and if you let this deck go to 8 resources, it's almost impossible to win versus it. If Emperor Palpatine's deploys, and you don't have enough damage in hand to finish the game, you will not finish the game later. So this is basically how the deck functions, and I have a really, for me this deck is really fun to play, and it's really fun to play against. So I'm really glad that he decided to take it to the tournament.
Yeah, I think also Kotul is pushing down for playing Palpatine in general.
Yeah, and I really hope he does well with it.
I kinda don't hope that because I'm gonna play him probably soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's on my side of the bracket.
Yeah, and now we are playing with, we are looking at the Jarol list. He decided he's the only player who brought Boba Green. Deck that we decided is too weak to be played competitively. But he has a really spicy take on it. And it's also really weird take on the deck.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's mostly weird because he decided to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 one-offs in a deck. So his deck is really, this deck will be really inconsistent. It can feel amazing if you draw the right cards at the right time, but I think like more than 50% of the time you will just draw a card and oh, this card is useless at this moment. Or you will go into the decisions that I have only one walker. If I put it in the resource, I will never draw another one. And it will put you in the really difficult spots a lot of the time. So for me, this list is really awkward. But at least he runs a free off of the most important cards, like Barrage.
Does he? I mean, he's not running 3 copies of Crafty Smuggler, Boba Fett,
Okay.
Fleet Defenders.
Yeah, at least
So
he's
also-
running 3 copies of Barrage.
Yeah, that's something, I guess.
Yeah, but yeah, it's really hard to evaluate lists like this because it can perform extremely well or really useless. And with lists like this, you can win a tournament and feel like the best player, but you can also lose to a random deck because you drew all of your one-offs and your deck really doesn't come together at all. He even
Yeah,
ran
like this.
more one-offs in the sideboard, so
Yeah, I would say that this deck is just the upside of playing just so many one-offs is that the fact that like no matter how bad situation is gonna be, you have still some small percentage chance to get a card that can win you the game. Like I don't know, like playing Triple Dark Raid into Relentless or whatever and win the game just outside of that. But yeah, it really requires quite a bit of luck because those are just one-offs and the chance of drawing them is quite low.
Like, objectively speaking, the thing that I really don't like about the list is that he do not utilize the biggest strength of Boba Green. So he is running only one Boba Fett and no Toros. So his turn 3 is really not that strong. So, but of course, if with all Boba Greens you want to ramp on 3, but you will not always draw Resupply or Technician, and if you don't, your turn 3 will be really, really bad. He doesn't really run a lot of 4-drops, so Gamorrean Guards are the ones he chose, and I think those are really weak compared to the other options. So yeah, I don't really like the list. I think it's too spread out and too inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's not running Toro makes sense because there are not that many bounty hunters. Like there is only the Boba and that's it basically. So Toro wouldn't be the greatest choice, and also the fact that you have ramp makes you kind of not want to play 4 drops. I guess you can play like 2 or 3 copies of something just in case you didn't draw the ramp or the ramp is not the ideal in that matchup. But the Garmer and the guards is pretty interesting choice. Like I feel like the Forlom or Beckett is just better version of that card, depending on what you need. But I guess that's what he decided to do here.
But because he's playing the deck that we were playing in set 1, I still hope he does something with it. But it will be really hard because of his bracket.
Yeah, he's playing also against Palpatine.
Yeah, he's playing versus the worst possible matchup, so...
I don't know if it's the worst possible matchup, but
I think it was in set 1 it was, and the deck doesn't really got a lot of new things, so...
Yeah, I guess we can move
And
on.
let's talk about your list, that is so different from the one that I took. So the only difference is that Sip is running 3 Admiral Akbars instead of the shuttle. His deck is objectively better. I will not deny that. If you want to copy a list, copy this one. Don't copy my version. Mine is a little bit more spicy with the shuttle, but yeah, this version is more consistent and it's just better. So
yeah, I mean, it's just a 1 card difference, but I feel like Akbar is better than shuttle in general. Like today, I was playing on the local and I got kind of screwed over by the opponent, the enemy hand playing the ship, the 5 cost 5/6 that goes into space. So I might try to fit one or 2 of those into my hand list, but at the moment, yeah, I feel like this deck is pretty good version of hand.
Yeah. Okay, and I think lastly, no, not lastly.
No, there are at least 3 of them.
Yeah, there's another. No, I think it's the first Boba Yellow list.
Oh yeah. Oh, maybe right. Well, whatever. We can just
and this Boba Yellow is really interesting. I think it's really cool. I think he utilized a lot of strengths that the deck provides, but he also has a really big weakness to the deck, and that is the fact that he runs Evazan. And Evazan can be a really big issue. Even though he runs McClunky to fix it a little bit, I still really hate that card. I think the card is really bad. And the places when he is good, he doesn't really win you the game. And the places when he is bad, he can basically solo lose you the game. So I think it's not worth it to play him. And the others, like the choice that he made with the deck is playing Hotshot Blasters instead of Surprise Strikes, which for me is also a little bit more risky because Blasters, yeah, they are permanent, but they are they cost 1 more. They provide 1 less attack, even though it's permanent. But the biggest issue is that you cannot play them on ships. And Surprise Strike really often is a finishing that you do in space with Fire Spray or 7th Lead Defender. So I'm not really sure how well it will prove to be.
Yeah, the downside of not being able to play it on Fire Spray is pretty big downside. So I feel like this in general is pretty good. Like he's running 3 copies of Relentless Pursuit and 2 Waylays, which is pretty a lot because I wouldn't run more than 3 or 4 copies of them combined together. But I guess that's what he decided to do. There are a lot of upgrades, as you said. He's running bodies in the main deck, which I'm also not the biggest fan of, but it's okay choice. And also, by the way, he's also from Poland, as I learned today.
Oh, that's a lot of Polish player in the top cut. Yeah. And let's go through to the next list because it's also a Boba Yellow and it's a little bit different. And even though I don't really like the choices that SpatPad made with the list, I think I'm so humble did even bigger mistake for me. Let me put it that you can see all the cards. Bigger mistake that is his list will be really inconsistent because of a lot of one-offs. Like we said before, if you're trying to build a list that feels like it plays the same every time, playing a lot of ones-off is really, it hurts. Like it can hurt the deck, and he especially plays one-off in the removal spot. So one waylay, one relentless pursuit, one shot first, one hot shot blaster, one
Hot Shot Blaster and Final Showdown are finishers, but
yeah.
I feel like in general when you want to play one-offs is the main way to play them is with cards that are very situational and can just sometimes just straight up win you the game, but for the most part they might not be as good in most situations, so you don't really need that many of them. But when we talk about stuff like removal or just decent units that are good in general, then I would just run 2 or 3 copies of them, or basically always. Like the fact that he's running only one waylay on one relentless pursuit is kind of weird, but
yeah. He also runs
that's
only 8 turn 1 plays, unless you consider Greedo a decent turn 1 play. But
I would say Greedo is okay turn 1 play.
I think he was really good in set 1, but I think
in set 2 he got worse.
I think because a lot of people run R2D2 now, a lot of people can have really explosive turn 1s. If you play only Greedo on turn 1, it can be a little bit lackluster. But Boba is also known for having the worst turn 1 in the game from the top decks. So maybe he just wanted to focus on the parts that the deck is strong.
Yeah, I mean, there are not even that many better options. Like there is the Fugitive Wookiee, which is not really that good in AL Boba because you tend to play those cheap units also in later stages of the game, and the bounty can really screw over. There's Avazan, which we already talked about. They have Mercenary Gunship, but I don't know if you need that many spaceships.
Yeah, but there is also the
like
3-1 ambush that is pretty decent because you can play Greedo with him. So
I don't like him because when you play Boba, you want to play aggressive, and just trading is not really that good.
Yeah,
and when you play him as a 3-1, he's not good.
Yeah, but I would still add at least one more to drop to the mix to make it more consistent, to have something to play on turn 1. Okay, so let's go with the last green Sabine, and this is really similar list with the YouCanCallMeAl. I think the only thing that we can talk about is that he is running Ketsu in main. And
so Ketsu instead of X-Wing.
Yeah, and Rule with Respect in sideboard.
And also Echo Base Defender instead of Fighters for Freedom, because I think Al was running Fighters.
Yeah. I think it's actually a decent choice, even though Echo Base got cut from most of the list in set 1. Because set 2 is mostly Sabines right now, there is a lot of them. Echo Base is a really good card versus Sabine, so including it, I think he made a correct choice in this tournament.
I mean, if you're expecting Sabines, then he's okay, but the Echo Base Defender has a problem of not trading well with 3/5 units, and there are a lot of them in this set, so I'm not exactly sure whether he's better than Fighters for Freedom, but he's definitely a pretty good option.
Yeah. And his sideboard is also what a lot of people would play. Expect from the Rule with Respect. I think this card is mostly versus aggro, but I'm not really sure if you want to spend 4 resources to capture cards. I don't really see this card as the card you play in aggro to counter other aggros.
Because it's expensive.
Yeah,
pretty expensive.
So I'm not really sure if it will be really useful. Yeah, but we will see how it will fare. I didn't really test the card that much, and from the testing that we did with it, it was performing really badly. So yeah, maybe he will have a different experience with it. And now we have the only player who brought green Han. Zip, can you run us through the deck?
Yeah, so there's a Green Han. Green Han in set 2 in general was more suited to be a late game oriented deck because all of the late game cards that he got, like the attack, is pretty late game oriented stuff card, and also he has a lot of ramp. So resupply is a ramp. DJ is pretty much a ramp card, so there are quite a few of those. And Marauder is also a ramp card, so yeah, Han's late game got quite good. Not early game, not so much. So because of that, Hans also decided to cut most Hans list, Han Green list decided to cut Surprise Strike because it's mostly an aggro card, like when you want to be aggressive. And Han nowadays, the green version of old Han wants to be more oriented around late game. I don't know why he decided to cut one copy of Battlefield Marine. I feel like the card is really good, and just the free for 2 is such a premium stat line that I would run 3 copies of them every single time.
Yeah, but I think because of Han, he can play a free drop on turn 1. Maybe
he can, but still free is such a good stat line that I just kinda would rather play in a lot of cases Battlefield Marine and just don't lose the card, because you still have to pay the cost of like a discarding card in.
I would personally cut one Greedo before I cut Battlefield Marine, but the deck seems okay. I think the green Han and yellow Han can be compared to green and yellow Boba from set 1. So yellow is more aggressive, more straight to the point, and green can play a lot of a longer game, a more controlling game. And for me, personally, I prefer the yellow version much more. In current meta, I think the green version is a little bit too slow, and it has the same issues that the yellow has, but it's slower to execute their main objective. So it's still a really strong list. It can definitely win a tournament if you play it right, but it requires extremely long hours in preparation, and I think it's not worth the amount of hours you need to put if you can play a yellow version that is much easier to play and performs on the same level if you master it. Okay, and lastly, the last Sabine, and the Sabine that has 3 Dark Sabers in main.
Yeah, the viewers can see it, but maybe you can scroll down a little bit. So yeah, there are 3 Dark Sabers. Because we already talked about those, so there's no point to talk more about them. There's 2 copies of Timely Intervention, which is also a pretty interesting choice. I don't know if I would run them in main deck in Sabine, because they don't synergize with Forecast, and also I don't know if they're good in that many matchups to run them in main deck. There's also Metal Ceremony. Besides that, like, there's no Heroic Resolve.
And there is also only
also running 9 turn 1 plays.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't like this list. I think for me this is like the worst or second worst Queen Sabine list that was introduced to the tournament, and I think it will struggle a lot in the matchups that he will have, especially that he is running versus the green Han in turn 1. Okay, so let's see the brackets. And let's make a prediction. So
can you zoom a little bit?
Yeah, I will zoom. I will just Okay. So first, Cody versus Han. So green Sabine versus me, and I think we can easily say that I will predict myself to win. And it's mostly because we tested Han, then White Han versus Sabine a lot, and it is Han favorite by quite a big margin. So, Sabine definitely can win this matchup, and it's not like, oh, it's an easy matchup to play, but you can't really make a lot of mistakes as Sabine, and you really need to have a good play every single turn. And if you don't, Han can really take over the game in like one turn, and you will never recover. So that's why I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Also, I don't know how Beton is doing that, but he's always doing well against Sabine, and I sometimes just lose to them randomly. So that's an also.
Yeah. And then we are having Han Blue versus Yellow Tarkin, and it's really funny because I think this is the worst matchup that Han Blue could got. Because if Tarkin gets Lurker with even one counter, it's a threat that is almost impossible to beat.
I mean, isn't he still the ship, the Concord down, so the ship that gets free attack when defending? So
yeah, but the fact the Concord down is a really good answer, but Tarkin can just skip one turn of attacking to build your ships to the point that they will not die. And of course, Han can win this matchup. It's not like an 80-90% win rate for Tarkin, but I think it's definitely a Tarkin favorite matchup. But it's also a really hard matchup to play because you need to know when to play your lurker, when to go aggressive, when to trade. So it's a really big this matchup will basically show which one of those players have a better understanding of how to play their deck. But I will call Tarkin to be more favorite, so I will put him in the round 2.
Okay, next we have Avestator Krenik versus YouCanCallMeAl. Is it Al or is it AI? Because
I think it's Al. I was always calling it Al.
Okay, so yeah, I think that Sabine is gonna win this matchup because as we were talking during the deck overview, the Krenik doesn't really have that many good options to counter aggro, so he might struggle in this matchup. Maybe there is something that we don't know about the Krenik, and he's gonna perform better than we are expecting. But at the moment, I would say that Sabine is gonna take it.
I will just predict that I think Krenik will skip turn 1, Sabine will dominate first 3 turns, and Krenik will just die on turn 5 twice. And I think it will be one of the quickest matchups in the league. I hope I'm mistaken, but this is what I will predict. And next we have Rebel Resources versus Ioucounoujr. And this is a mirror match. It's Han Yellow versus Han Yellow. And as we talked, I think Rebel Resources list is much more aggressive. And I think it will have an edge in this matchup because of it.
I mean, it's tough to say because it's a mirror and their lists are...
They are not that similar.
Yeah, I mean, they're not similar, but I don't know. Like, it's really tough to predict, but I guess we could call that Ryan is gonna win.
Yeah. Next we have Kotul with Palp Green versus Jarol with Boba Green, and I think it's an easy pick for Kotul. I think Palp Green has really good matchup versus Boba, so
yeah. We don't like the idea that how the green Boba looked, so I think the Palpatine is gonna take it.
And now it's another easy one, so I will pick Sip to win versus Yellow Boba, and it's mostly because Yellow Boba is not that hard of the matchup for Han. I think Yellow Boba really struggles if Han plays a really big, strong turn 1. So if you have Maz and 2 other units, it's really hard for Boba. He also struggles a lot if you play a lot of units because he doesn't really run removal. He can only bounce or tap it. And yeah, I think you will take it.
I think the fact that Boba bounces unit is pretty alright for Han because Han tends to run out of cards pretty easily. So the fact that your opponent is bouncing them gives you option to just play even more of them and get the advantage in this way. So I think Han is pretty good in this
So
matchup.
nextly we have I'm So Humble with Boba Yellow versus PrairiePirates with Sabine Green. How do you fare those matchups going?
To be honest, I don't really call how the lists were looking like, but it's Boba Yellow versus Sabine, and I feel like Boba Yellow has a pretty decent matchup against Sabine in general, so
Yeah,
I think
I would
it's
say the
gonna
same.
be, yeah,
Yeah,
I think
and
Humble is gonna take
lastly
it.
we have Jonah with his Han Green and Buku with his Sabine Green, and I will call that Jonah wins it just because I really hate how Buku built his Sabine. So
So I'm
uh,
gonna say the opposite. Like I feel like the
okay,
Sabine is gonna take it because the in set one Han was kind of struggling against Sabine, and uh, also now he's running even more late game stuff, so he might struggle against Sabine. Maybe there's something matchup specific that I don't know about, but I think the Sabine's gonna win this one.
okay. So uh, we can go one more round, but I think we will be just go back to the predictions after the first matchups. So yeah, we can easily just go like this, but I don't think we will be predicting anymore today. Yeah. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you will comment on who do you think will win and who has the best built deck during the tournament, and what list you will be stealing and going to your locals with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.